Now moving into our top 25 rookies of 2024 to 2025. This is the culmination of all the work that we have done from the offseason to every single week, having a top three rookies of week one, two, three, four, every week. Starting off, though, before we get into top 25, we're going to go ahead and name off our missed the cut. I'll go and start it off with I could not get safety Cam Kinchins in there, linebacker Peyton Wilson in there, Kamari Lassiter, corner, running back Tyrone Tracy. I really wanted to. I just couldn't quite fit him in. And Renardo Green, the corner for the San Francisco 49ers. Couldn't quite get him on just past that 25 point. But those are my five who just missed the cut. No particular order there. Just five guys that I wish I could have made it in there. Just didn't make the cut for me.
Yeah, none of your guys made the cut for me. I'm going to go ahead and add Tyler Nubin, Ray Davis, Roma Dunze, and Mr. Rosengarten from Baltimore to my can't miss. Couldn't make the cut. So this is where it gets interesting.
And it's unfortunate because how good the rookies have been. I just feel like all the rookies have been so good that it's so hard to just make a list of 25. Drew, we're going to go ahead and list off 25 to 21, then 20 to 16, 15 to 11, and then we'll do our top 10 individually one by one. Okay. All right.
All right.
25, I have Leatu Latu. 24, Marvin Harrison Jr. 23, Caleb Williams. 22, Andrew Phillips. And 21, Jackson Powers Johnson. Out of the guys that I have on the list, I think that the one that surprised me the most was Jackson Powers Johnson. He played all three interior offensive lineman positions with only giving up 2 sacks the entire year. I have all the stats in front of me if I could pull them up instead of just guessing. 2 sacks all year, 3 hits allowed, and 23 pressures, playing 956 snaps. Again, playing all 3 interior offensive line positions. This guy could have probably been bumped up more. But again, we're talking about how good. It was a surprise how good he's actually played because I know he was really not playing the beginning of the year, really kind of up and down, and then being statistically sound. Again, playing all 3 interior offensive line positions. Andrew Phillips, we've talked obviously a ton about. Caleb Williams, I don't think deserves nearly the amount of hate that he's gotten this entire year. I think he definitely deserves a seat inside the top 25. Still, Marvin Harrison Jr., another guy, still deserves to be in that top 25. I think he's still been good enough to be there. And Leatu Latu, our guy, just barely making the cut. That might be one that's a little bit biased, but I still, again, think he's good enough to make the cut there.
Yeah, I mean, I had all of your players on my list. None of them where you had ranked except for Jackson Powers Johnson. So I'm going to put him JCP. That's actually not it. It's JPJ as someone that I didn't have. At 25th, I had Mr. Dominic Pooney, which if he's 25th, that tells you why I didn't get Jackson Powers to my list. I'm also now thinking that I probably should have had Cooper Beebe on this list somewhere, and he didn't make my list either. So Dominic Pooney at 25th. Okay. I got Chop Robinson at 24th. He didn't play a ton this year, but he did lead his team in pressures.
Yep.
23rd, I put Michael Penix on my list just because he played well when he did play. So I do feel like he deserves some respect there. At 22, I got Tavondre from the Tennessee Titans. And at 21, I got Mr. Kamari Lassiter.
Oh, okay. So you did fit him in. Okay.
I did.
Yeah, I think the only one that I kind of disagree with you on, because I have all the guys that you mentioned on my list except for Lassiter. Obviously, I've already mentioned that he just missed the cut. I think the one that's kind of the most different is Pooney. Obviously, you got to watch him week to week. I got to look at his base numbers where he ranked as a guard by PFF standards, his penalties, his sacks allowed, his offensive snaps, and I got to see all his numbers as a whole, and then that's where I put him. That's where we have the largest discrepancy. He's a lot higher on my list than yours.
It's just the value of the position.
Okay.
Did Dominic Pooney play better than Caleb Williams this year? Technically, yes, but Caleb Williams is way more important, has a million more things going on. So That's just the value of the position, things like that went into this list a lot. Obviously, for the people that are listening to this, you and I did not discuss any parameters for this at all. All
Nope.
we just give me your top 25 and give me your reasoning for it. So, like I mentioned, I took snap count into that's why Renardo Green didn't make my list because snap count. So,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, I didn't put the positional value ranked as much for me. If you played like multiple positions, like Jackson Powers Johnson did, and then you only gave up, 2 sacks on the year, and you played as well as you did, you definitely deserve to be in that 25 for me at least. Now let's go ahead and list off our 20 to 16. At the number 20 spot, I have Evan Williams, safety for the Green Bay Packers. At number 19, I have his running mate, Edrin Cooper, linebacker for the Green Bay Packers. I have 18, I have Drake May, quarterback for the New England Patriots. 17, I have Tavondre Sweat. And 16, I have Nate Wiggins. All those guys made your list, I'm assuming. We missed anyone?
I miss Nate Wiggins.
Yep. He was one I
I
almost
messed
forgot
that
about.
up. I just totally forgot him. So that is a mistake on my part. Nate Wiggins was definitely a top 25 rookie this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got all your other players and not too much variation there. At
Okay.
number 20, I got Mike. I just put Mike, but Washington Commanders rookie corner.
Still, yeah, I didn't put him on
Sanders
my
still.
list. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Thank you. Number 19, I had Bucky Irving.
My list.
18, 18, I had Braden Fisk from the Rams.
He also made my list.
17 is where I slotted in Caleb Williams.
Okay.
And at 16, I had Drake May.
Okay, yeah, so not too much different except for the Bucky Irving thing, another guy that I have significantly higher. Obviously, I'll explain all my reasoning there for myself. I think that guys who don't realize how good someone like Tavondre Sweat is might miss some of the stuff we're saying here in the top 25. His numbers might not pop out at you, his grade might not pop out at you, but what he does in snap in and snap out, helping out with the run, taking on the double teams, what he does for the Tennessee Titans is irreplaceable. What he got drafted for, that's what he does in the league. You need to go watch Tavondre Sweat. If you don't think he should be in this top 25, go look at him. Go look what he does. He's pretty fantastic. So I think he's an impactful player that definitely deserves recognition. And I think this is a pretty good caveat spot to stop here to say that if a guy like Edrin Cooper is at 19 on my list, who's been really good this entire year, he's not higher. It's because one, he wasn't playing the starting position the entire year. I think he had 87 tackles. He probably would have had a lot more than that if he played the entire year in the starting position if he was granted that. Um, and two, it's no disrespect to him or any other players. I think all these guys are really, really good. Every single one of them, and it just gets better as it goes forward. But the 15 to 11 spot for me, Chop Robinson, this is where I slot him at that 15 spot, second in pressures for all rookies, like 56 pressures on the year, 6 sacks. So shout out to him. He was fucking awesome. I had Cooper DeJean and his running mate, 13, I had Quinyon Mitchell. So both those guys, 1A, 1B. Quinyon was fucking awesome all year. Locked up a lot of players, only allowed 40 receptions on the year, so he was pretty good. And then the 12 and 11 spots also go hand in hand with each other, and that is Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. Jared Verse being my highest rated defensive player on my list. Yes, that means my top 10 is filled with offensive players, almost like that's how the draft went as a whole. Was the first 18 picks were offensive guys. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of discussion here. I think this is where you could definitely get the most contention because of how good Fisk and Verse and Mitchell and DeJean, those guys have been. Those four guys, you can make arguments. But I had a hard time dropping any of these guys out that are in my top 10. I had a hard time doing it.
All right. Teen for me, that is where my guy, Edrin Cooper, is going to make his debut.
Okay.
14th, I had our guy, Mr. Latu.
Okay.
13th, I'm guessing you don't have this guy on your list at all. Clear, unless he counts as your offensive player. But I got Zach Frazier at 13th. I
Zach
thought he was
Frazier
fantastic this
is
year.
on my list still.
Okay. At 12, I had Quinyon Mitchell.
Okay.
You had him at 13th. And at 11th, I had Marvin Harrison Jr. I still think he's a freaking stud, and
Absolutely.
I don't think the statistics back it up as much this year, but I think if the Cardinals had decided that we're gonna give Marvin Harrison Jr. the Malik Neighbors treatment and just give him 15 to 18 targets a game, he would have been outrageous this year. So,
Yep. I'm right there with you. I don't have a lot of guys are a whole lot higher than yours, but obviously we have some disparity between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Cooper's.
Latu.
Obviously, Latu is definitely the biggest one right there as well. But yeah, I totally understand it. Latu is
Well,
our guy for sure, but
and I do have Jared Verse on my list, but he's coming a lot later. So
yeah, for sure. So we can go ahead and start off doing it one by one now. At the number 10 spot, this is where I slotted in a Mr. Dominic Pooney. Again, over 1,078 snaps, 7 penalties, 3 sacks allowed, no hits allowed, and 35 total pressures, which is even lower than some of the other tackles on this list. So he was pretty fucking awesome, man. Just looking at the base numbers and looking at where he's ranked, the 11th overall ranked guard, just guard, and 6th at his position specifically. So he was a stud. He was ninth overall in run blocking grade at for guards as a whole, with left guard and right guard being factored into that. So he was awesome. I slot him at the 10 spot. That's probably where we have the largest disparity there. Where'd you go with 10?
this is where I had Cooper DeJean.
Okay. Yep. And we've talked about Cooper for lengths on end. I feel like how good he's been, third ranked corner in the league right now, and amazing in the slot. And yeah, definitely. He's your highest rated corner, correct?
Nope.
Am I missing someone?
No, you already mentioned him. You had him at 22.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. All right. Number 9, I had Bo Nix. This is where I slotted him.
Okay. Number
This
9, I went with Andrew Phillips.
okay. And see, so this is where we talk about the positional value thing. Obviously, Bo's going to come later, a little bit later in your top 10. But for me, I didn't put the positional value super duper high. I think that the guys 8 through 1 are you can argue every single one of these guys are top 10 to top 5 to number 1 in their position this year. That's the difference. Is I don't think Bo was top 10, but I think the rest of these guys are top 10, top 5, top 3, top 1 in their respective positions this past season. So that's just the difference. Again, positional value ranks him a lot higher than this, but that's why I slotted Bo at 9. Just to explain myself for Andrew a little bit is I slotted Andrew a little bit lower just because of his wavering a little bit and later in the season. And that's the only reason he dropped as low as he did. And I almost forgot him. I almost fucking forgot him until I went back and I looked at some of the listings and I was like, fuck, I almost forgot about Andrew Phillips. Add that
My
number.
my problem with my problem with him, why it was hard for him is he was just top 5 in everything. You
Yeah.
know, like the rankings and stuff. He just every list I put together, he was like, "Oh, Andrew Phillips." And the reason I think that I shouldn't have put him this high, but I did, is because I wasn't expecting it out of him to start the year, but we just kept talking about him. It
Yeah,
was
we
like
did.
there were so many good corners, but we kept talking about Andrew Phillips. It was the same thing about Renardo Green. There were so many good corners, and we kept talking about Renardo Green.
Yep.
So, I was all over Max Melton.
Hmm.
I loved Max Melton. We didn't mention him once this year.
Yep. Absolutely. At the number 8 spot, this is where I slot Bucky Irving. Once again, guys who could be argued for the top 10 in their position. Bucky Irving, 100% can be argued for top 10 running backs this year. He's top 10 in yards, scrimmage yards. He was incredible. He was. We knew how bad Rashad White was. At the end of last year, how inefficient he was, and Bucky Irving came in and took that position pretty quickly.
I think you're going to hate me for this,
Okay.
but it really just came down to their importance of a player at the position. And the 7 people I have in front of him play a more important position, more important to their team going forward. In theory, I don't love that I put him at 8th, but this is where the stud of all studs, Mr. Brock Bowers, comes in at.
Oh, yeah, I hate that.
You're not taking a tight end over a
No,
top
I
flight,
get it.
a number 1 wide receiver. You're not taking him over your franchise quarterback, and you're not taking him over a perennial all pro left tackle. So,
I get the argument. And again, we talk about how we made the list, positional values. You and I didn't have the same parameters. So okay, I hear you. I'm not listening, but I hear you. At the number 7 spot, you might hate this, and I think a lot of people might as well. Um, at my number 7 spot, this is where I slot in Malik Neighbors.
wow. At my number 7 spot, this is where I slotted Malik Neighbors.
Okay, well then there we go. Okay, so we don't hate it. Perfect. Why I had some guys over Malik is because of targets. He had like 170 fucking targets on the year. His target
Yes.
shares, the whole nine. Malik's been awesome. Shout out to him for being able to take on as much workload as he actually did. But goddamn, man, like you look at the numbers. If some of these other guys got the numbers that Malik did, they would have eclipsed fucking 1,700 yards on the year. So still
We
impressive,
we talk
still
about it
fantastic.
w we talk about it a lot in NBA when it comes to things like usage rating. That
Yep,
does matter. That
absolutely.
does matter. We talked about it in the offseason comparing Brandon Ayuk targets to CeeDee Lamb's targets and
Hmm.
what Brandon Ayuk's stats would look like with CeeDee Lamb's targets. We talk about that all the time. Now, the fact that you can take that many targets and like this is not Malik Neighbors is making an all pro team. Malik Neighbors is a bona fide stud.
Yep,
There's nothing wrong with that. It just where it came on the list here.
absolutely. My number 6 spot, this is where I slot in Zach Frazier. I think
Oh
that
wow.
6th ranked center on the year, played 975 snaps. He only allowed one sack, only 5 penalties, 2 hits allowed, only 12 pressures through the whole year. He was awesome, dude. He was my number one ranked pure center coming into the league, and he's proven it. I don't forget Pittsburgh, man. They got another fucking offensive lineman who didn't really play all year. Troy Fautanu. That offensive line is gonna be really fucking good because I think Troy Fautanu's really good. Yeah, Zach was awesome the entire year. His run blocking grade, again, 6th among all centers. His overall grade, 6th among all centers. So he was awesome. I think he definitely deserves that number 6 spot. He is my second highest rated offensive lineman in my on my list.
I put Lad McConkey at 6.
Okay.
So I think he was a little bit more important to his team than Malik Neighbors was.
Yep.
And I think that these two players are both going to have massive careers, but
Yep.
just when one team makes the playoffs and the other team wins 3 games, Lad gets a little bit of a bump,
Yep.
in my opinion.
And I think you could say you're number 5 because for all the reasons that you just said for Lad McConkey is the reason why I put him at 5. So that's where I slotted Lad in is at the number 5 spot. So yes, Lad makes my top 5 rookies of this last year. So you can go ahead and say you're number 5 because all the reasons you already said for Lad, I'm right there with you.
Number 5 is where I had Bo Nix,
Okay. Positional value stuff
just
over
because
over me.
he had a hell of a year, man. He
Absolutely.
took his team to the playoffs, and this isn't a defensive tackle that took his team to the playoffs. This isn't a linebacker that took his team to the playoffs. This is a starting quarterback from day one in one of the most complicated offensive schemes out there. Took his team to the playoffs.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I think when we sit here next, this is my highest rated offensive lineman at number 4, Joe Alt. 1,010 snaps, 8 penalties, 6 sacks allowed. But he does play the tackle position, and he's playing right tackle instead of left tackle. He only played 77 snaps at the left tackle position, and when he did, he looked fantastic. He only allowed 1 hit and 20 pressures. 20 pressures at the tackle position. Um, Fuck, man. We knew what Joe Alt was supposed to be. He came in, played the opposite side of where he's used to playing, and a guy who's that fucking massive, the leverage he gets, again, everything Joe Alt we knew he was supposed to be. Go back top 5 rookies at every position. We said Joe Alt was one at the tackle position, and we went through our scouting report on him and why. And he's everything he's supposed to be here. Again, he slots in at my number 4 spot.
We got at number 3.
At number 3, I have Brian Thomas Jr. Made an all-pro team.
Agreed.
Yep. So you're there at 4 and 3?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, listen, man, Brian
So,
Thomas,
so Brock Bowers is number 2.
Brock Bowers is the only rookie for me to be the unequivocal number 1 at his position. Jaden Daniels is 2. If we take positional value into it, Jaden is 1. Brock has been unequivocally right there. Jaden is a top 10 quarterback in this league. You can have an argument for top 5, but Brock is a top 1. If you want to have the argument for top 2, you can. Tight end in the league. And he's not just a tight end, he's a weapon. We've had this discussion many, many times. 112 receptions on the year, over 1,000 yards. I don't listen, man. We're lockstep on 4. We're lockstep on 3. I know you put Brock at what? I mean, Brock was awesome, man. And listen, Jaden Daniels is the rookie of the year. Let's get that straight. Jaden Daniels is rookie of the year. Absolutely should be. And there should be no question about it, because when we're talking about rookie of the year, we're talking about positional value. If I put positional value in my list, I decided not to, because that's how I wanted to make my list. He would be 1. Jaden Daniels is rookie of the year, without a doubt. He's
I'm not
fantastic.
I'm not I'm not going to get mad at you for not using the same parameters that I did. Jaden Daniels is my number 1.
Yep.
He won a playoff game.
Mhm.
That's the Raiders won 3 games. That's how I did my list. I'm not arguing with how you did your list. My number 2 is arguably, you have quarterback is the number 1 position on a team. And then you could argue that the second most important position on a team is edge rusher.
Jared
And
Verse.
Jared Verse was a
Yeah,
top 10 edge rusher
that's awesome.
in the league this year.
Yep.
And so I got him at number 2. And that might just be, trust me, I don't want to compliment anything on the fucking Rams. Nothing. Just like you don't want to compliment Jaden. You don't want to compliment Quinyon. Like,
Yep.
you don't want to compliment these guys. Jared Verse is just a dude.
Yep.
It was an amazing pick. And honestly, slotting him at number 2, we all knew Brock Bowers was going to be Brock Bowers. Like,
Yep.
Me telling you he's gonna be their number 1 offensive weapon. He's gonna lead the team in targets. That wasn't, I mean, Devontae, sure, maybe, but us putting Jared Verse at number 2 is a pat on the back for you and me, because we were all over that, and it just didn't seem like other people were.
Yep.
And so to slot Jaden Verse, and then to continue my pat on the back, is why I got Jaden at 1.
Yeah.
And putting Brian Thomas Jr. third is, I mean, I didn't have that. You know what I
No.
mean? Like, I
No,
was
no, no.
not all over Brian Thomas to start, I really liked Keon Coleman.
Mhm.
I really, and shout out to the people that yelled at us all offseason talking about how we had Xavier Worthy over AD Mitchell. How'd that work out? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just, honestly, I'm excited about the way we put this list together. I think this is fantastic. I do think I'm a dumbass, and I would like to go back and drop Michael Penix off and put Nate Wiggins on, because I missed him. I
Yeah.
didn't leave Wiggins off. I just missed him. And unfortunately, when you're combing through all the statistics and looking at all these things and a lot of crap, as I go into my trash can to look up my top 5s that I have, I just missed him. I
Yep.
missed Nate, which sucks.
It's all good. Let's go ahead. That was a lot of fun. The rookies, I feels like our final kind of bow on the year. We'll still do our rookies, week to week if we can, if it's possible, depending if, the rookies play well enough, or even if they're playing into the playoffs. So it feels like a good final bow on everything. And it feels like we're ready to move forward and looking forward to next year, as you and I both get our work done for the draft. I almost have a first round completely, finished out. Only a couple players left to really kind of put a wrap on things, and then moving into the second round. A lot of detailed stuff. It's gonna be fun.